I promised that the next episode of the Blockbusters was going to be on The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and I watched it, and the thing is, as bad as the movie is, I felt like, at least at this point, that there wasn't that much to talk about. I think the biggest thing I took away from it was that it was an insult to a classic horror movie, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, one of the best movies of all time, and it was just a very pointless sequel that added nothing to the original and added a bunch of really stupid bullshit on top of it, and it led to Exorcist 3 and a bunch of other pointless sequels that I don't even remember. So instead, let's talk about another possession movie starring Linda Blair, except this time it's a parody from 1990 called Repossessed.
In 1973, an entire world watched as a little girl and a holy exorcist battled and cast out the devil himself. But now,
I am the devil. I think Nancy has been repossessed.
Repossessed. Coming soon.
Hey man, as long as it's not Ricky 1, I think we're good. So I'll take what I can get. Let's just talk about Repossessed. This movie apparently doesn't have a full description, at least not one I can find. The closest thing I have to one is on Google. It says, an old exorcist, played by Leslie Nielsen, takes on a satanic housewife, played by Linda Blair, broadcast live by a televangelist, Ned Beatty, and his wife. That's the full description. The one on IMDb is no better. So as you'd expect with a spoof movie starring Leslie Nielsen that came out around the same time that we still got some decent spoof movies out there at this point in time. This is before Scary Movie kind of set the groundwork for, oh, parody movies have to be just nonstop references and pointing out, oh, hey, it's that thing from that thing. Except, the first few Scary movies were actually good, and then everything that came after that, like, date movie, epic movie, disaster movie, all that crap was just absolute dog shit. Before then, we had some bad parody movies every once in a while. We got the Ricky ones, but then you got the classic ones. I mean, you got your Mel Brooks movies, you got your Airplanes, your Hot Shots, your Naked Guns, and then you got something like this where it's just kind of like, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not as good as it could be. So the movie begins with Leslie Nielsen as a priest doing an exorcism on Linda Blair as a little girl who's possessed in 1973. But the demon, as it's exorcised, says, oh, I'll be back. And then you get the gag at the beginning that they then pay off at the end where Leslie Nielsen just goes, oh shit. That's the opening joke of the movie. We jump forward a little bit later, we see that little girl is now grown up into an adult Linda Blair. Linda Blair plays a woman named Nancy, because, get it, in The Exorcist, she played a girl named Reagan, and Nancy Reagan, like Reagan's what, yeah. She's married, has a husband, 2 kids, just typical suburban family, and then they're watching the TV, and there are these 2 televangelists, one of which is played by Ned Beatty, and he was in one of the Exorcist movies, so I guess that was supposed to be a connection. But this husband and wife team of televangelists say, oh, we deal with exorcisms and all that kind of thing, and that's when Nancy gets repossessed. Title drop.
Repossessed.
All the while this is going on, this is all being recounted at a college campus by Leslie Nielsen, who's telling the students about this event. Then eventually that kind of just goes away halfway through, and it just becomes the main story. Like, that whole framing device feels like it just could have been scrapped. Like, it really doesn't matter that much. The story of this woman now being repossessed is going around to a bunch of different people. Eventually it lands in the hands of another priest named Luke. Does anyone else think this guy looks like the dude from Airplane? Does anyone else see that, or is that just me? They say that he worked with Father May-I at one point. There's a part where Luke goes to him to try and get help, and at first he's like, no, I'm retired from priesthood. I'm not gonna do that. I got more important things like dusting my house and watching infomercials. And then they do one of the most obvious Star Wars jokes of, Luke, may the faith be with you. So Luke tries to do the exorcism all by himself, and What happens is, again, another bit that's shown in the trailer.
God created man in his own image.
Then how do you explain Pee Wee Herman?
Eventually, the televangelists find out about this whole thing, and they're like, we're going to make this a big TV event. We're going to exorcise this demon, and we're going to do it on national TV, and we're going to have, a fundraiser event as well, because these people are clearly just a bunch of money-hungry hypocrites that are just pocketing off of religion. In between is a bunch of dumb gags. They try to fluff the movie out, because this is almost like an 80-minute movie. So they try to fluff as much as they can. Not as much as Ricky 1, because Ricky 1 was just nothing but garbled nonsense. The stuff in this movie makes somewhat sense in terms of comedy. It's just that most of the stuff that happens isn't all that funny. Like, for example, there's a part where Luke starts doing a rap number.
All the Catholics in the house say ho!
In front of the college students. I don't know why he's there in front of the college students if this is a story that's being recounted to the college students. That's where the whole framing device thing became really wonky, and it was like, why are we even doing this anymore? The part where they established that Leslie Nielsen's character has a heart problem, so it's like, oh, we gotta get you back into the gym. So they have a whole like exercise montage moment, and it's like, oh, get it? Exercising, exorcist, exorcism, oh, isn't that funny? I mean, if you're a person that wants to see some movie from the 90s where Leslie Nielsen wears skin-tight pink spandex and jumps around and does like aerobics to pump up the jam, this is apparently the movie for you. Eventually, after a bunch of wacky, goofy gags, Luke decides he's going to try and exorcise the demon himself once the whole television broadcast thing goes all haywire, and the demon then turns the two televangelists into... She teleports them into a crappy donkey costume, and it just runs off.
What do I do with a couple of jackasses like you?
Eventually, Leslie Nielsen shows up to help him do the exorcism, and there's a bunch of lame gags, like they parody the thing in Exorcist where she says, lick me, but she's dressed up as a giant ice cream cone. There's a bit where she transforms Leslie Nielsen into a bunch of goofy costumes, one of which is Rambo, so they can get an easy Rambo joke. It's like, come on. We already had Hot Shots Part 2 for that. We don't need to put a Rambo reference smack dab in the middle of an Exorcist parody. For some reason, they have like some wrestling narrators, like Jesse Ventura, show up to like do like wrestling style commentary.
He's down, he's out. It's a heart attack, Mean Gene.
I mean, it was impressive they were able to get them to show up, but it's like, why? It comes down to, they're like, oh, we've tried everything. We've tried scripture, we've tried prayer, we've tried everything the devil hates. The only thing we have left is rock and roll. And then what they decide to do is to exorcise the demon for good. They do a giant like rock number. Get Leslie Nielsen dressed up as like a bunch of different musicians. Like they got Billy Idol, they got Michael Jackson, Talking Heads, Flock of Seagulls is referenced. Like it's a bunch of different things.
Devil with the blue red, blue red, devil with the blue red song. Hey, say, devil with the blue red, blue red, blue red, devil with the blue red song.
The thing I forgot to mention was this televised event was going to have like a bunch of different religious leaders show up, like the Pope and a bunch of other people. They show up and they're doing instruments on the stage, and eventually it works and the demon is exorcised out of her body. But oh, they do the thing at the beginning like, oh, I'll be back, and they go, oh shit. The movie ends with probably the shittiest song during the credits. They made their own little rap number for this movie for the ending credits, and rightfully so, that won the Razzie for the worst song in a movie that year. The movie wasn't very good, but at the same time, I was nowhere near mad while watching this movie. Look at some of the other movies I watched earlier this year. You know, Garbage Pail Kids, Ricky 1, Son of the Mask. Those movies, I was angry. This, I was just like, it's not very good, but I'm not angry while watching it. This movie feels like the kind of thing you can actually pull off. You can pull off a full-length parody of The Exorcist if you do it right. It's just that this movie fell short in that the best scenes are when they parody The Exorcist. And again, they parodied the obvious scenes of, you know, the two priests trying to exorcise. The actual, like, story-driven stuff that's in The Exorcist, they parody a little bit, but they don't do it that often. Instead, they fluff out the movie with a bunch of other crap, like, again, Leslie Nielsen exorcising, or the other priest guy doing a rap number, and all that kind of thing. And it was just like, this, I get the jokes they're doing, it's just that they're not very funny. Which is more than I can say about other bad parody movies I've sat through for this show. It's, you know, Meet the Spartans and Breaking Wind. Those movies were nothing but just oh, look over there, it's that relevant trend or that relevant movie or TV show everyone's talking about. That was just, they're references. They're not jokes, they're just references. It wasn't like Ricky 1 where, first of all, the movie looked fucking abysmal and you could barely make out what was happening. And the stuff you could make out wasn't even like remotely connected to Rocky, which is what their main spoof was. I feel like the thing is that with parody movies, it feels like they just try to go for the obvious parody. They don't try to like parody the story segments. And that's kind of what they did with this. They just parodied the exorcism. There's a few minor references. I mean, they reference split pea soup, which is obviously what Linda Blair threw up in the original movie.
What are we having?
Oh, your favorite. Prime rib, sweet potatoes, green beans, and split pea soup.
There are clever things in here. Leslie Nielsen, like always, even when Leslie Nielsen was in bad parody movies, he at least tried to give it his all. You know, he was great in the good ones, but in the bad ones, he still tried. They still weren't very good, but he tried. Linda Blair, honestly, is probably the best part of the movie because she actually looks like she's having fun. She looks like she's actually enjoying, like, poking fun at the movie that made her famous. So, props to her on that. A few funny jokes, like the parts that they actually parody, The Exorcist was funny. There was a few hidden gems in throughout, but I mean, if you're looking for a funny parody of The Exorcist, there's a bunch of comedy sketches where they just parody the signature scene of, you know, the power of Christ compels you. They do the whole, like, scene and they parody it verbatim, and they're probably funnier. There's some sketch shows that did it. Scary Movie 2 did it at the very beginning, and stuff like that.
Fuck this.
You know what, though? I'll say this, like, before I even remotely touch Exorcist 2, I give the movie this. This was a better Exorcist movie than Exorcist 2 or 3 or any of the sequels, just because, again, Linda Blair looked like she was having some fun with this one, so, again, props to her on that one. So, next video on the Blockbuster show is actually not going to be Exorcist 2, but it's another Exorcist movie, where, or at least the movie has Exorcist in the title. I heard this one was bad. I've never seen it in full. I've seen that some people have talked about it on YouTube. But the movie I'm going to be looking at next time for Blockbuster Show is a movie called Shark Exorcist. And apparently the DVD release is from the same guys that did Amazing Bulk, supposedly. So I'll have to look into that and see if that's true. But anyways, yeah, next time, Shark Exorcist on the Blockbusters. Until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
One more word out of you little sacks of shit, and there'll be no more TV for you tonight!